Here we are at Bensold Fort in Colorado. Now this is a National Historic Site near La Junta, Colorado, and it is in Otero County. And this fort was located in southeastern Colorado by Charles and William Bent and Karen St. Vrain, and this fort was built to trade with the Southern Cheyenne and Arapaho Plains Indians and trappers for the buffalo robes. Now, for much of its 16-year history, the fort was the only major white American permanent settlement for the Santa Fe Trail between Missouri and the Mexican settlements. It was destroyed under mysterious circumstances in 1849, according to Wikipedia. Now, what we did here was visit this site. This was a free pass day, so we were allowed to go anywhere with a guide or by ourselves. So we chose to go by ourselves because we didn't want to wait and we didn't have much time. So here we are looking at the inside of the fort. As you can see, the adobe construction on the top and bottom, and with the ladders. Well, I'm sure the stairs weren't there back in the day. They were all ladders. And everything was just here's people coming right now from the tour as we venture on forth. As we continue up through learning about each, we got a little brochure here telling us about everything. Now this first place is the supply room, and where you could purchase everything from the trading. Now I'm taking a lot of pictures in here because this is a little out of the way from the normal path in Colorado that we would normally go. So I don't know if we will ever venture out this place again. So this is why it's kind of a lot of picturesque here for us. And as we continue up through the rooms, as you can tell, there's a lot of little exhibits here that you can visit. A little cash register, which you can purchase something. Now, over here's the moccasins and from the Plains Indians and the American frontier traders and New Mexicans. Look at all the fine jewelry and pottery that they provide. Okay, this is going to be a hodgepodge of things because I had to do some major editing here. And in here is where they used to skin buffalo and have the hides. This is like a hide room where they would stack everything. This is barrel there, door there. And as we continue forth, another trading room here. This is like the equivalent to an old general store. They would bring these cloths and trade with the Indians and possibly the Mexicans back in the day, and play checkers. Yes, play even checkers here, I guess. Look up on top of the roof there. And here we go in the dining area. They would take everything and eat all here in this little mess hall. And the adobe fixtures here in this fort quickly became the center of the Bent St. Vrain Company's expanding trade empire, which included Fort St. Vrain to the north and Fort Adobe to the south, along with the company stores in New Mexico at Taos and Santa Fe. The primary trade was with the Southern Cheyenne and Arapaho Indians for buffalo robes. According to Wikipedia here, so I didn't know much about this fort other than, to me, I wanted to go here because it reminded me of Red Dead Redemption. So I had to go here because I had so much fun here on Red Dead Redemption. I wanted to go to a fort that looked very similar. So once I found one, I was like, we gotta go here. We gotta go here. And we finally made it here. And it's in the middle of nowhere. It takes about a mile-and-a-half hike from the parking lot to walk up. There's rattlesnakes all over in the plains areas on both sides of the before the graveyard. So watch your step. It's always careful to look before you go. So here we are again, back on the outside. Each room here is go in one room, out the other. They're not really connected every room. So you have to step in and step out for each room in this fort. A lot of these pieces here are, I don't know if they're really from this time period or if they are just here for decoration. So as we go on further down the line here, we will see what else we have. A lot of the fort was featured in CBS Western miniseries The Chisholms, George MacDonald's Fraser's 1982 Flashman and the Redskins. The anti-hero Flashman is present in the destruction of Bent's Fort. Bent Fort is also featured briefly in Larry McMurtry's 1985 Lonesome Dove, as the 1989 four-part miniseries, as well as was adapted from the book. Again, here, according to Wikipedia, Bent's Fort inspired video game developer Rockstar Games to recreate its likeness in the 2010 game Red Dead Redemption as Fort Mercer in the Rio Bravo region. So, as I'm looking through this, and it got its same start as I thought, just playing the game. So, didn't even know that until just now. There's a restaurant named The Fort near Denver. Has architecture and decor adapted to Bent's old fort. Now, we looked at eating at that place, but since it's in the middle of Denver, we didn't go to that, and we looked at it before we went, and it is just like this place, and they serve like Rocky Mountain oysters, buffalo, elk, all kinds of fish. I mean, it's a great place. It's just we're not used to driving big cities, so we didn't venture out into there. We probably would have went to Buckhorn Exchange if we would have, and I believe that's on Osage Road. I can't remember exactly, but probably would have went there. But there's a lot to do in these parts of the world that you're not used to seeing, and this is one of the examples here at Bent's Old Fort. And let's see, what do we got here? There's not too much on Wikipedia on Bent's Old Fort without venturing too much about the destruction here. And according to it, in 1849, when a great cholera epidemic struck the Oklahoma and other Plains Indians, the fort was destroyed. It was conducting its trading business until 1860, when the building was leased to the United States government and renamed Fort Wise. It was there that the Treaty of Fort Wise was signed on February 18, 1861 by the United States and a few Cheyenne Arapaho chiefs. Old Fort Lyon, as Fort Wise was renamed in 1862, was built of timber by Army troops in 1860 about half a mile west in Arkansas River bottom. It was abandoned and replaced by Fort Lyon near what is now Los Alamos, Colorado, in 1867. When the fort was reconstructed in 1976, its authenticity was based on the use of archaeological excavations, paintings, and original sketches, diaries, and other existing historical data from the period. And that's pretty much all we have on this, unless you go in deep research. And this was just a side trip, because we went to the Great Sand Dunes in Colorado, and this was on the way to Dodge City. And I wanted to stop here. So that's about all I knew at the time. We probably should have took the tour, I mean, if you wanted to know the truth. But it's 2 levels here. The first level is more so the living quarters, and I wouldn't say peasants. There's here's all the black powder and stuff that they kept for artillery. As we venture further into the abyss here of this fort, we're looking at more of the adobe structure, and how it's constructed here. As we venture into each room, we see, let's see, oh, more skins. So this is probably the trapper room here. So a lot of fox and maybe mountain lion in this area. The Old West, how it was won by the gun. And here is a little bit of, I think they kept a lot of, I can't recall. I know this is all black powder, and I believe they had black powder down there too. This is part of going on vacation, looking at these fun little things like this and what you get to see. I mean, it's hard looking back because this was back in 2015 when we ventured out here. So, and it was toward the trip where we gotta get home. So everything was kind of a blur in that section there. But pretty much all of it was a blast. I would go here again. Surprisingly, when we stopped to park before we walked, there was a guy here, and very surprised to see anybody under 40 interested in the Old West. You know, I pretty much want to live, die, and abide by the Old West way of life, but, you know, of course, we can't. But he's like, nobody under 40 ever wants to see this kind of stuff anymore, so it's kind of sad what the way of society, how it is now. I mean, I didn't really grow up on the westerns in the 50s and 60s like my father and grandfather did, but I did grow up watching movies like Tombstone, Blaze of Glory, and, you know, and some of those in that genre, you know, eventually led up to like Russell Crowe's 3:10 to Yuma. You know, eventually played games like Red Dead Redemption, Red Dead Revolver, I think that's what it was. And, you know, coming up shortly, Red Dead Redemption 2. And I can't wait to play that game. I mean, I just love the old feel of the Old West like this. You know, just imagining how everything was to live off the land and trapping and hunting. And, you know, we hunt now here where we're at, but to actually do it full time and gardening and everything, a lot of people wouldn't be able to survive. And it was very rough back then. Okay, as we go up these steps here, now these are lookout towers or stations, I guess, or as we go up, if she goes up with me. Okay, here we go. Each one of these little portals here is a lookout place where you have your gun looked out and make sure there was no Indians coming or, you know, any enemies, and they would just fire away from the artillery, like right there, boom. There'd be a tank there. Not a tank, about 70 years off here, but a wagon. And here we go. I don't know what those little holes down there are for. Little platform. I bet you there was a ladder back in the day to go down to the next level to pull up more ammunition or black powder when the fort was sealed. And here we go, venturing on this adobe little platform here. And it's very sturdy up here too, so it's not like it was a weak construction right here. As we look upon, we see different rooms upon the roof here, all the way over. That's where we were, that's where we entered. And here we are. Look at this. I mean, this is just adobe platform after adobe platform. These are all little chimneys right here. And as you can tell, if you're looking down, you can see different areas where you could look out and see the enemy. little platforms all the way around that you could just stand on and get to and hold your position. I mean, that was the key thing, to hold your position. And the architect here who made all this possible is William Bent and Charles Bent. That's why this is named after, Bent's old fort. The whole area circumference is about 799 acres around this area. And it was a lookout for all of Otero County. Now, I'm not quite sure if it was called Otero County back in the day. And for the longest time, La Junta, I pronounced La Junta, and I don't speak any Spanish, so everything's just wrong when I try. So, and this right here was a quarters here where they used to have games and play billboards and the billiards, and the poker table here. Little old-time cards right here. The bar there where they had their drinking nights, but it was closed off for us. We couldn't really venture too much to learn. So we did our best and looked at everything as we could. And I love these old cards like here. It's like, now you got to remember, this time period was 1833. 1833. This is almost before the Civil War. It was definitely before the Civil War, but it was definitely before Tombstone. It was definitely before, Wild Bill Hickok. Before all this. This is like a pioneer settling here. Before all this happened. So this wasn't quite the Old West. This is like the old West. So you gotta imagine what it was like back in the day. This is almost George Washington era here. Not quite that old, but it's up there. Here we are on another little platform here. And what we're looking at here is another lookout tower. You can see all the way around here. Each hole has a purpose. Look out from all around this section here. Now, one of these sections, we're going to see something really cool right here. We see a horse. Look at that horse right there. Now, that is a majestic beast. As we look over here, we're going to see something else of size. What we're appearing at is a longhorn steer. There's another out there. That one's just grazing. And as we appear at the horse again, we have to look at what's around. A man and a horse. And way over here is where we entered. And as we enter, here I go. And of course, we're walking down the steps. Well, I shouldn't say steps. There's walkway here. They had little golf carts out there in the distance where they drove to get around this place here. There's another horse. Like I said, I'd highly recommend this place, and if you do a better job in learning everything better than what we did. Take the tour and see what you can learn. I think the tour was maybe an hour and a half long, and we didn't really have that much time to go, but we wanted to actually experience room to room, and we did, and it took us about 40 minutes. So do yourself a favor, definitely do the tour. The staff is very nice and generous, and for the most part, when we went in, the woman who was there actually knew everything that seemed pretty presentable and knew her stuff, but we just had to wing it for ourselves. And here is another room. think this is the main area where the general lived. The biggest room where he had hang his clothes and his little cot.